Welcome to the 4040 Vision podcast. I'm your host, Khaled Abdallah, and I'm joined today by a special guest, Keith Ricci, Senior Manager of Fan Relations for the Boston Bruins, Raider fan, and the man behind the Al Davis tribute in Brockton, Massachusetts. How you doing today, Keith?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy work day. I know you guys are ramping up for the new hockey season, which I think preseason has already started, right? So you guys are right in the thick of things?
Yeah, so we just started preseason this past week. We had our first home game this past Sunday, so we're right into it right now. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So obviously live in Boston. I assume you grew up in the area. You correct me if I'm wrong, but how does a guy from Boston with the Patriots, with a lot of other choices on the East Coast, there are a lot of other football teams, how did you become a Raiders fan?
Yeah, so I am a lifelong New Englander, born and raised here in New England, originally from Connecticut actually, so a little bit south of Boston, but yeah, my father is a Raiders fan, so like a lot of people, that generation saw some Super Bowls and saw some really good teams. And so, he was a Raiders fan, still is a Raiders fan, and so I like to say that I was born into it. I've been a Raiders fan since the day I was born.
Okay.
So yeah, a little strange, being so close to Foxborough all these decades, when they've had some amazing teams, obviously, and even before the Brady era, they made a Super Bowl in the 90s. People forget, like
Yeah, they
Bledsoe,
did.
they went to that Super Bowl against Green Bay. And there was actually a point in time before Gillette Stadium was built that Robert Kraft had said that the team was coming to Connecticut, which again is where I'm from. So
They were going to Hartford, right?
they were going to go to Hartford, and Kraft pretty much used it as a way to get Gillette Stadium. So people in
Yeah.
Connecticut had mixed feelings on the team after that, but yeah, that's kind of the story. And being a Raiders fan somewhere else is always kind of fun because you are the Raiders fan. So like in my friend group, I'm the only Raiders fan. So anything good or bad that happens with the
Yeah.
Raiders, people are thinking of me because I'm the Raiders guy in the group. And you know, it's like if I run into a Raiders fan here in New England, it's kind of like an alien running into another alien, and you have to
Yeah.
say hi and you have to say something. It's it's awesome. I love being a fan, being even so far away.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I grew up in California, but I did live on the East Coast for a considerable part of my life, about 10 years. And there's Raiders fans everywhere. When I lived in
Everywhere.
Philadelphia, obviously the Eagles are there. The Eagles are great, but I'd see a ton of Raiders fans around, Raiders flags, jerseys, whatever it might be. In Jersey, New York, where I lived as well, like you got to see them everywhere. So it was almost like an instant, like, hey, we have like an instant bond or connection here. I think we're about the same age, so we've probably had. I'm in my mid 30s. I don't want to guess, but you look like you're about the same. So I think
Yeah,
we've had
I was born in '88.
okay, same here. So we're exactly the same age.
There you
So I
go.
think we've had a similar Raiders experience of, maybe early on we had some ups with the Super Bowl appearance and some good teams, but since then I think it's been pretty difficult. But you said your dad was a Raiders fan or is a Raiders fan. Is he a Raiders fan because of like the 70s teams, John Madden, that era?
He yeah, I mean that certainly helped, but he says he's a fan because when he was a kid, like a young toddler, he had a blanket on his bed that had all the team's logos on it, and he just liked the Raiders logo the best. And
It's the pirate.
good on
Yeah.
him for noticing that as a toddler. Noticing how great that logo is, and that's what did it. And I'm sure the winning teams that he got to experience certainly helped that fandom. But it's true.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. Absolutely.
I have a 5-year-old daughter, and she's like, we went to the week one game against the Patriots, and she didn't even. I got her a jersey, and she didn't want to wear the jersey because the jersey doesn't have the logo on it. So she wore
That's
a
true.
Raiders shirt and a Raiders hat, but it had to have the logo. So it's just
Okay.
funny that like even at a young age, like my father and now my daughter, you know, they know that it's the best logo in the league.
Obviously, yeah. I mean, we're completely biased, but I think even an unbiased person will say, that timeless pirate, the colors, everything is just, it's cool. I've been
It's
around
the
the
best.
world. I think a lot of people that have no knowledge of football or the Raiders or anything, they see a cool pirate logo. It's black. It's like, hey, this is cool. I'm gonna wear
Right.
this. Um, so I guess this is the connection, right? So you're a lifelong New Englander. I did not know that Al Davis was born in the
Right.
Massachusetts area. I assumed he grew. I knew he grew up in Brooklyn, so I guess I just assumed that he was born there as well. So I guess what was the inspiration for you to get this plaque and this memorial or tribute in his hometown?
I mean, that was really, you just said it. That was the motivation is everyone thinks of Al Davis and they think of Brooklyn and they think of California. And rightfully so. I mean, he went to school in Syracuse, so he has the whole New York thing, and California is where he became what he became. Being a New Englander and being a Raiders fan in New England, I always thought it was so cool that Al Davis was from here. Like I always thought this is amazing that the patriarch of the organization is also a New Englander like myself. So I've always just thought that was so cool. But even, not just the fact that it's like a piece of history people don't realize, like yourself and a lot of Raider fans, but also the city of Brockton, Massachusetts, hadn't really celebrated him and hadn't really fully acknowledged, that this is where his life began. And Brockton is known as the city of champions, and a lot of people probably don't know that. But the reason being is
Okay,
they've
yeah.
actually had world champion boxers that have come from Brockton. So guys who were undefeated, guys who won the heavyweight in the 80s. I think there was a world boxing champion from the 80s who's from Brockton as well. So that's why locally they're the city of champions because they've had boxing champions.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
so I thought, well, Al Davis is a three-time Super Bowl champion, and the city of champions, they love to celebrate their great boxers, but they should also be celebrating him. So
Yeah, absolutely. So
last
what was the
February,
process like? Yeah, sorry, God. I was gonna say,
yeah, yeah,
what was the
I'll go
process
right
like
into
in
it. It's
getting? Yeah, please
yeah,
do.
it's kind of a long story, but last February, so 7 months ago now, I reached out to the mayor of Brockton. I emailed him. Didn't know the guy or anything, but I just found his info online, and I sent him an email saying that, hey, this is a piece of history that people don't really acknowledge, and Al Davis deserves to be celebrated in his hometown, and the hometown of Brockton deserves to claim him and celebrate him, and be able to cast the light on him. And so I sent a pretty long email explaining his accomplishments. The mayor replied in 10 minutes. He said,
Oh,
let's
that's
do
awesome.
something. Let's do something. Let's meet next week. I mean, so he was enthusiastic about this immediately. I mean, I don't know, he read my email and must have just agreed right away because he responded, like I said, in 10 minutes. So we met the next week. It was myself, him, and his chief of staff, and a few other people from City Hall. And I pretty much just, talked about who Al Davis was. The things that you and I know, we
Yeah,
know
yeah.
about the on the field stuff, winning Super Bowls, revolutionizing the deep ball, the ruthless defenses, his Hall of Fame players. Like you and I know all that stuff, and even the things he did off the field. Like we know that, but they don't really know all that. So I kind of gave a little history lesson of who he was and why he's important. And the mayor himself, he's from Brockton and played football in Brockton, and he didn't even realize that Al Davis was from Brockton. So
That's crazy. That's sad, but yeah,
it
I mean
is, it
that's
is.
makes
And
sense, I guess. Right?
yeah, in Brockton, a little side story is an awesome football town. They are called the Brockton Raiders,
Is that
and
just a coincidence?
no, they back in the day they named it after him, after Al
Okay, all right.
Davis, and
That's
it's
awesome.
their
Okay.
grades 1 through 8 youth football team, and so they've got several teams for each grade, and they're really good. They go to state championships every year. They just last week I was looking, they won 46-0 against a team that's close to my town. So it's a really good football town. They produce Division 1 players. It's pretty impressive that this little city in Massachusetts that people don't know much about is actually a really good football town. So it kind of ties that together as well. But the way we left it in that meeting was, I mean, I basically said, I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's a bench at the football field in his honor,
That
or
would be
is it
cool. Yeah.
a memorial plaque, which is what it ended up being. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I kind of left that to them because it's their city and they're the ones that are running the
Sure, they
show.
have to take like budget and other things into consideration that you weren't thinking
Right,
about?
right. I wasn't gonna say, build a 20-foot statue. That's not. It wasn't in my place
Why
to
not?
say that. Right, but we left it as, my biggest thing was that the Raiders were playing the Patriots this year. So the time to do this is now, and we kind of left it as let's wait to see what the NFL schedule is, and whenever the Raiders Patriots game is, then I will reach out to the Raiders and Mark Davis and make them aware of it. But that was the first domino that had to fall was let's decide what this is, and then when the schedule comes out, we'll know when we're doing it, and then we can go full court press on the Raiders people. So the schedule came out. It was a week one game, which is great because in New England we get snow, and
Yeah, I was
it
gonna
was
say you got lucky with that. It could have been like a mid-December, which would have made things a little more complicated. Yeah.
would have been a little rough. So the date worked awesome. And they're the ones that said, hey, we're going to go forward with a memorial plaque. We're going to put it at City Hall, which is a great location because it's kind of the central part of the city, and it's where a lot of the traffic will be as far as people walking by it. And so from there, it was, I reached out to the Raiders, and, they were similar to the mayor where they responded very quick because they saw, what I was trying to put together. And
So you reached out to, I'm assuming someone like in the PR or media relations at the Raiders?
yeah, I did. So I being someone who works in sports, it's kind of easy to find connections with other teams.
True,
So
true.
I
You,
was
you do
able
have the inside
to,
route. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was kind of an easy path for me. So I reached out to their VP of comms, Will Kiss, who's been there since the Oakland days. And he, yeah, he was very responsive and loved the idea right away and was able to put things in front of Mark as we went through the process. And yeah, I mean, credit to the city of Brockton too, because they could have told me, hey, great idea, see you later. And they could have just, done the whole thing on their own. And that would have been totally fine. But they, from the beginning, they wanted to be involved for it to be a collaborative thing. And I think, again, a lot of it was the fact that, like yourself, we're Raiders experts. We know the Raiders. And so I think they needed someone to kind of connect those dots. And so, yeah, that was the whole summer was really planning the whole thing, not just the plaque and what it's going to look like and what it's going to say, but also the actual ceremony and the
So
celebration of him.
did the
Yeah.
team or Mark have any input on the final design? Because it's beautiful, but did they have any input on it?
Yeah. Mark wanted to see everything. I mean, he's very protective of his father's legacy, which I think is awesome. That's really cool that, an NFL owner is busy and can do a lot of different things, have long to-do lists, especially that time of year going into a new season. But yeah, he wanted to see the language that I wrote up for the plaque. He wanted to, he chose the picture of Al that we used on it. I had a hard time with the picture because it was hard to find just a nice headshot of Al. Every picture is, him celebrating or him yelling at refs or, he's very animated. So it was kind of hard to find like a perfect headshot. Um, yeah, they provided that, and even just the logistics of the day. And I'm lucky because with my job at the Bruins, I do a lot of event stuff, events that involve players or coaches, and so I kind of know what logistics to look for to assure that everything's going to be smooth for them. And so just all that planning was, they wanted to know the details, and he wanted to know details, and yeah, I mean he was pretty involved, and it ended up being an awesome day, and the weather was perfect, and yeah, it was awesome, really good experience. Again, just being a lifelong Raiders fan like yourself, just being able to experience that and see it come to fruition, and it was covered by local media here. It was
Yeah,
really
did see
cool
that. It was great.
to see that, like a Raiders thing in Massachusetts before a Patriots game is being covered by Massachusetts media. Like that was awesome, and we had like 300 people there. It was a really good turnout. A lot of Raiders fans who traveled obviously for the game. Some from Italy, some from the West Coast, people from all over.
Did you publicize it online before? I mean, I saw that you kind of hinted at a couple things on social media, on Twitter, but I didn't see like an
Yeah,
official announcement, I think, until the day of.
yeah. Tried to do just a little bit. My fear was that it was going to blow up too much. And
Sure, sure.
I didn't want it to turn into something that, I don't think we have the space for 1,000 Raiders fans. And,
All
and
town,
I
yeah, it makes
mean,
sense.
yeah, you know how Raider fans are. Like they care about Al and the ownership group, and like a lot of sports teams don't like their owners. A lot of fans. A lot of fans don't like their team owners, and we look at Al Davis as, almost like a biblical figure. You know what I mean? Like we celebrate him. And so yeah, I try not to go too crazy publicizing it. But then after it happened, that's when I really started to push, making people aware, because now this plaque is going to be there forever. And so I want Raiders fans who happen to be in Massachusetts to visit it. And the Raiders play the Patriots again next year here, which is weird because that happens like once a decade, and now it's going to happen 2 years in a row. But, I want to continue pushing it because I want people to go visit this and celebrate Al. And the plaque is 1 mile from the house where him and his family lived. And the house still stands. And so there was a bunch of Raider fans who visited that house after the ceremony that day. So it was just really a cool thing to be a part of. Again, I can't thank Brockton and the Raiders organization enough for, embracing the idea and really giving me the keys to the car to, make it come to life.
Yeah, and I saw that you were able to go to the game the next day with Mark Davis. So were you like a special guest of the team, and you were able to hang out with him for the day?
Yeah, so at the ceremony, a few weeks before the ceremony, the mayor asked me to speak, and that was not something I was planning on doing, and I'm not much of a public speaker, especially in front of 300 people. I did it because I figured there needs to be some kind of Raider Nation voice up there. There's politicians talking, and we knew Mark Davis was going to talk, but I figured there's got to be a Raider Nation voice at the podium. So I went up there and did a 5 or 6 minute speech, and I got to talk to Mark a little bit at the ceremony. But later that night, I got an email saying, he wants you to be in his suite tomorrow to watch the games. So I got to go to the game. Me and my 5-year-old daughter, her first Raiders game was in the owner's box, which she'll never be
Yeah, you
able
set the
to.
bar pretty high.
She'll never be able to match that again. But yeah, it was really cool experience being able to watch a Raiders win uh, with him and the president, Sandra Douglas Morgan. She was in there. Jim Plunkett and his wife were in there as well. Jim Gray, who's friends with Mark Davis and Tom Brady, he was in there. And then it was me and my 5-year-old. It was we were definitely the out of place of the group, but it was just such a cool experience. And I think I posted this on Twitter with the picture the next day of, like, my biggest takeaway is there's no one that cares more than that guy. I mean, his passion for that team is unmatched. And like, I get everyone's frustrations, especially the last few years, and I'm in the same boat. But that guy he wants it. Watching the game with him was like, it was really like watching with a fan. Like, I didn't know what to expect because sometimes owners can be a little rough or a little too serious maybe, or maybe like over the top professional. But he was locked into every play, and just like you and I watching the game on the couch. So I thought that was really, really cool. But yeah, just what an awesome experience. And you know for them to just let a complete stranger into their private area like that, because they don't know me. They knew me as the guy that was putting all that together. They knew I was with the Boston Bruins, but they don't
Hmm.
really know me. I could have been a crazy fan screaming at Pete Carroll all game for all they knew.
Yeah.
But kudos to them for opening the doors like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think one of the things, I mean, aside from the frustrations, I think one thing we can all agree on is like Mark Davis is a proper Raider, and he's not someone that's just, owns a team just for the clout of it or the financial aspect of it. Like, he really cares. He was born into it. He grew up a Raiders fan. He's always going to be a Raiders fan. And despite, some of the issues, he does care. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
that is important, that he cares about the past. He cares about the present and obviously the future. It's really hard to replicate that like authenticity when it comes to the owners, because a lot of the owners they're kind of removed from things. They'll show up for a trophy presentation or
Sure.
something like that, but they're not there like in the thick of it, like I think like Mark Davis is. So
I mean,
that's an amazing, yeah.
he bleeds it like we. I mean, he bleeds silver and black like we do. And like I remember one of the quotes I read or I saw of Al Davis when I was preparing my speech. He said something like, "Instead of being consistent, I'd rather be right." Or so I just botched it. It was something about like, forget consistency. I'd rather be right. Meaning, like, if something's not working, I'll make a change. Yeah, I think we see that with the Raiders the last few years. Is like he's willing to give the keys to the car to Tom Brady, and he's willing to try new things and recognize when things aren't working. And so, yeah, I think that's a positive.
Well, for sure. I mean, he's not a Jerry Jones type that's going to meddle in every football decision and try to put his fingerprints on everything. He's letting the football people do the football things, which I think is great. And he's doing great on the business side. There's no complaints on the business side with the value of the team and all that stuff. He's doing great with the aces and the WNBA as well. So he's got that down for sure.
But that's the thing too. Like you were just mentioning how a lot of owners might be thinking about the dollars and the cents, and like even when I was again because I'm on the business side of sports and I'm going into my 15th season working in pro sports, and like so I tried to talk a little business with him, a little shop with him, and his focus is the football team. Like what's better for at least my takeaway, just this is my perspective of how he operates is it good for the football team? Is this it's not necessarily is this good for the next dollar we need? Is this the right thing for the football team? And I think that makes sense. That's why they could change their jerseys or their logo and make a ton of money on new merch. They could not spend so much time relating and initiating with their alumni. Like they're always engaging with their alumni. No other team invests in their alumni as much as the Raiders. Those are two examples, but you really get the
Yeah,
sense
once
that
a Raider, always a Raider. That was
yeah,
like
you
Al
just
one of his many mantras, right? Once a Raider, always a Raider. And there's so many
yeah.
stories of him taking care of guys like in their retirement, paying bills for them, medical
hmm
bills, and he was even if you played for the Raiders for one season, if you were like a loyal servant to the Shield and to the club, like he was going to take care of you.
Right. And I talked about that a bit when I gave my speech on him. And I also mentioned how like even opposing players looked up and respected this guy. And great example, sad example is Derek Thomas, right? He's a superstar from the rivaled Kansas City Chiefs. Gets in a very very bad accident. Al Davis goes visits him in the hospital. A few days later, he dies, and Al Davis pays for the funeral. Like
Incredible.
that's who he was. I mean, that's just and so I that was the message I tried to give when talking about him. I didn't really talk about the football stuff at all. I think the only thing I really mentioned was that the Raiders were a one-win team, and then they hired him, and he won 10 games, won Coach of the Year. And then that was it. I didn't really talk about football. I talked about the people he hired and the fact that he knew pretty early on that having that consistent identity of the silver and black uniforms that they have 60 years later, same logo 60 years later. The slogans you just mentioned, I mentioned that as well. Like there's teams now that have full marketing departments who every few years try to come up with these catchy slogans. And this guy came up with these slogans organically, just on his, on a
Yeah,
whim.
he's a genius.
They're like folklore now. They live decades later. Um, so yeah, you're 100% right with
Well, I know we just have a few minutes left, so I want to ask you about a couple other things. Said we're the same age, so we both had similar Raiders experiences. But I'm always curious. I mean, who was your favorite Raider growing up, and did you have like a favorite memory of the team growing up?
So I'll be interested to hear your answer too, because my favorite Raider growing up and my favorite Raider of all time is Tim Brown. But I think our generation might be split on him versus Charles Woodson. I don't know. Who's your favorite Raider of all time?
You know what? Growing up, I became a Raiders fan because of Rich Gannon. So
Okay.
I was
I like
around.
that
It
answer
was
a lot.
like Yeah, it was like 98, 99. I'm 10 years old. I'm growing up in the Bay
Hmm.
Area. I actually grew up in Santa Clara, so I'm, a stone's throw from where Levi's is now. I wasn't there when I was there, but, I went to the Niners training camp a couple times because that's right around the corner for me as well in Santa Clara. But I chose the Raiders. They had
Wow.
the cooler colors. They had the better quarterback. I thought Rich Gannon was awesome. I loved the logo. Just like all this, I think a very similar story because my dad's not a football or sports fan at all. So it was organic, as in like I just like this team better. I like the colors. I like the players. So it was Rich Gannon for me. I love Tyrone Wheatley. That was like my early
Yeah.
early favorite.
Yeah.
But if I had to choose between Tim Brown and Charles Woodson, it's like asking like which kid is your favorite. But
It
I
is.
think Charles Woodson because I got to see more of him. I think
Hmm.
than Tim Brown, and then he came back, and there was that whole like nostalgia factor.
Right. Right.
You know, he was just.
So
I mean,
you
Tim Brown is. Yeah.
you
Okay.
should have been a Niners fan then, really.
Honestly, I mean, I'm surprised I didn't become one just because of proximity. And,
Yeah.
again, it's funny because, obviously my parents don't live in Santa Clara anymore, but sometimes I'll drive by our old house and you can literally see the top of Levi's from the driveway. Like
Wow.
the top deck. I think one of the logos or one of the maybe the third deck that you can kind of see like poking out from the top of the trees. So it's funny that it happened that way. But did you have a favorite memory, like a game, maybe a game that you attended? Did you ever come to a game in Oakland, by the way?
Yeah, not as a kid.
Okay.
I didn't come to Oakland until probably just over a decade ago.
Okay,
Yeah,
so like when
it
the
took me a
time
while.
was
It took me a
wrapping up
while
there
to
a little bit.
finally, yeah, it took me a while to finally get out there. But yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I'm with you. Those Gannon teams, man. I mean, he really was the difference. Like
Yeah, absolutely.
Tim Brown had a new quarterback every year until he had Rich Gannon. I think I really liked the. I mean, everyone talks about the Super Bowl team, and that was fun. That was a weird team because they were like 4-0, and then then they went 0-4. Like they were
Yep.
four and
Yeah.
four at week 8. And I know people always talk about, the fumble game here in
I'm sure
Massachusetts,
you
but
never hear the end of that.
no, it's actually it's weird that there's Raider fans that weren't old enough to remember that. Like that makes me feel anxious when you
Yeah.
see Raider fans online who weren't old enough to remember that game. But I like that 2000 team that ended with Baltimore when Saragusa, injured Gannon there in the second
Yeah.
half, and that
I
was a
think I was
tough
in
game. But I
eighth,
really
ninth
liked.
grade for us.
Yeah, yeah. I like that team because it was like the first really good Raiders team of our life. And then I guess I liked the 2011 team with Hugh Jackson.
They
And
were exciting. The Jason Campbell
yeah, I mean
time. Yeah.
they were 8-8, so they weren't great, but they gave us that was the first hope we'd had, like truly had, since the Super Bowl team. Like Tom Cable was in before that, and he had that team playing a little bit better than they probably should have. But when Hugh Jackson came in, it was like they could score points. Like the offense was fun to watch. So even though they were winning as much as they were losing, and like Jason Campbell was, I mean, people forget how good he was that year till he got hurt.
Yeah.
And like,
Great what if.
yeah, but then trading for Carson Palmer, like Raider fans look back at that and they're like, they are disappointed with Carson Palmer, and I get that, but like I remember that day trading for Carson Palmer, and I was pumped because I was like, this
Same
team,
here.
this offense, Hugh
Absolutely.
Jackson. I was like, this is good. This is a good thing. And people look back at that and they roll their eyes. But I'm telling you, the day he was traded, you remember it too. It was exciting.
100%.
So that team was kind of special, and they lost it the last week. They were 8-7 going into the final game and needed to win that, and something else I think maybe had to happen in order to make the playoffs. I think
Yeah, I think they lost to San Diego and
Chargers,
then
yeah,
Denver. Denver ended up winning
right.
the division and they won the playoff game. That was a
That was the
Tebow
Tebow. That was
Tebow
the
time,
Tebow,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then obviously the 2016 team. Like I think just like memory wise, I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent now.
No, no, please.
I think if you remember the 2016 team, the game against Carolina, if I had to pick one memory, it's the Khalil Mack pick six right before halftime. Do you remember that? In
Of
Oakland,
course. Never forget that. Yeah.
dives in like that was I remember watching that game with my wife on the couch, and I remember standing up and being like, "The Raiders are back." Like that play, I said, "The Raiders are back." Like that would just the Coliseum was like it was the loudest the Coliseum's ever been, as far as I know. I mean, it was just it was that as far as like just one play, one memory, like that's up there.
That I mean, the 2016 season obviously is all time, but yeah, that game, the Khalil Mack pick six, I want to say Carr broke his finger that game, so it was
Yeah.
like the result was kind of in doubt, and then of course, who
Hmm.
closes it out at the end of the game when Carolina's driving? Khalil Mack and Bruce Irvin again. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
right. That's right. That's right. And I'm a West Virginia guy. I went to West Virginia University, so
okay, there you go.
Bruce Irvin played there when I was there, same as Gino. So I was really pumped when we got Bruce silver
That's
and black.
awesome. It's awesome. Alrighty. So before we wrap up, one last question. I mean, this was inspired by Al Davis, who took the Raiders to, unseen heights, three Super Bowls, dozens and dozens of Hall of Famers. What is it going to take? Maybe an elevator pitch here of how can the current Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders, get back to the glory days of the Oakland and LA Raiders?
Man, I wish I had the answer to that. I just think I wish people weren't so down right now after these last two games. Like this was a four-win team last year. I don't know what people were
It's a good
expecting.
reminder.
I know it's frustrating to watch, and it's frustrating to watch the offensive line get eaten up. But I mean, I don't going into the year. If you ask me what we'd be after three games, I'd say I don't know 1-2, maybe 0-3. I didn't think 2-1 or 3-0. We won four games last year. Like this team wasn't like. But I mean that's I get it. Raider fans, we're supposed to be frustrated. We are. I get that. It's been way too long. I don't know. I think the positive of the O line is that maybe not immediately, but like you can fix that in March and April. Like you can fix an offensive line through free agency. I know you don't want to necessarily, build your entire roster on free agency, but that position, like specifically O line, like you can fix that with free agency and draft. So it might be tough to watch that line, this season, but I think I think they are going to fix it pretty quickly. I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to sound like overly, you know, like optimistic or like I'm drinking the Kool-Aid now that I had my moment with the Raiders a few weeks ago
Sure,
because
sure.
I'm just as frustrated as anyone else. But I also think again, this was a four-win team last year, and it wasn't going to happen overnight.
Yeah, that's a
I
good
still
reminder.
and I say that and I still think that this team can flip a switch. Again, I was in Foxborough week one and I liked what I saw in the second half. First half was a little shaky. Like we had a great first drive and Trey Tucker. That was awesome to see that right off the bat. And he's doing awesome. But that first half ended kind of not so great. And then the second half, it's like whatever adjustments they made or Pete Carroll said or Patrick Graham drew up because they started hitting Drake May in the second half and it was good. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little. I don't know. I just think that
I appreciate the level-headed take. I know it's
yeah. I'm just trying not to get too high
yeah,
or too low with this
yeah,
team because they won four games. I still think they could come near 500 by the end of this season. But again, this is definitely going to be another process where we're going to have to wait and see like we always do.
yeah, yeah.
What
It's
do you
hard to
think? I mean,
to
what do you think for this year?
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I mean, I was before the season, I was thinking, anywhere between 7 to 10 wins, I think would be great as a step forward from last season. I think it's hard to preach patience when we've been waiting for so long for a breakthrough. I mean, you think about the playoff season in 21 and you're hoping to build off of that, and then obviously things go off the
Right.
rails with
Yeah.
the McDaniels era and everything that's happened since. But I think it's a reset this year. They have talent. They just need some time to gel and figure it out with a new quarterback, new offensive line, all kinds of new faces everywhere. So I know it's not sexy to say, hey, just Be patient. It's a 17, 18-week season, but nothing's decided in September or even October. So let's see how it plays out.
Right, and I think there's enough positive pieces in place to feel somewhat positive. I think,
Yeah,
like I just said, Trey
absolutely.
Tucker, I think he's finally coming into stride, and at least so far this year he has been. And Bowers, and we know the weapons. Give Genty time. Like, I don't understand why everyone's jumping off a bridge over him so far. It's 3 weeks.
Yeah, he'll have a big game one of these days. Hopefully this weekend against
Yeah,
Chicago.
yeah, I hope so.
Listen, Keith, I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy. Thank you for uh, taking the initiative to do this memorial, this tribute, this plaque. Hopefully one day if I'm out in Massachusetts, I'll be able to go visit it. But yeah, thank you, man. Really appreciate your time.
All right, thank you. Take care.
All right, you too.